Prime Field.
18 made three-pointers, 50% accuracy, a 104-39 final score. Against Xavier, UConn's offense did more than run up the scoreboard. It reshaped the geometry of the game. The Huskies' season-high 18 threes at 50% efficiency forced a zone defense to stretch beyond its limits and exposed a structural weakness that future opponents cannot ignore. Welcome to Prime Field. This documentary examines how one perimeter barrage, led by an emerging specialist in Allie Ziebell, revealed the limits of zone defense and raised a pressing question for South Florida. What happens when a scheme cannot guard both the arc and the paint? The answer begins with a number that looks like a statistical outlier but behaves like a blueprint. UConn's 18 of 36 shooting from 3 was not just volume. It was a distortion of normal offensive spacing. At 50% from behind the arc, every catch on the perimeter demands a full defensive reaction. Zones that are designed to concede certain shots are forced to abandon that principle. The impact showed up everywhere on the stat sheet. The Huskies paired that shooting with 26 assists, their 6th consecutive game with at least 20 assists. On the season, they averaged 23 assists per game, ranking 3rd nationally. Sustained ball movement at that level is not incidental. It reflects an offense built to force rotations, skip passes, and extra passes until a zone finally breaks. The spacing effect reached the interior. As Xavier's zone stretched outward to contest shooters, the paint opened for Sarah Strong. She scored 14 points on efficient interior positioning, often operating in pockets of space created by the threat of the three-point line. The more the defense chased the arc, the more the middle of the floor became available. In that context, the 18-make anomaly becomes less about a single hot night, and more about how UConn's spacing model punishes any zone slow to adjust. The next turning point emerges in the form of a freshman whose role is rapidly changing. Early in the season, Allie Ziebell functioned as a bench option in a perimeter-heavy system. Against Xavier, her profile shifted. She became the primary problem. Zabel finished with a team-high 16 points, fueled by 5 made three-pointers. 4 of those threes came in a compressed 2-minute stretch of the third quarter, from both the corner and the wings. That sequence turned a strong shooting performance into a game-defining run, forcing Xavier's zone to account for her on every subsequent possession. The progression of her night matters. She opened 0 for 2 from 3. Then she closed at 5 for 7 from beyond the arc. That swing illustrates a familiar phenomenon. Once a shooter finds rhythm, defenders who initially sag or stunt late are suddenly punished for any hesitation. Her shot profile reinforces her specialization. 39 of her 49 field goal attempts this season have come from three-point range. That is a 79.6% three-point attempt rate. The data positions her not as a balanced scorer, but as a perimeter specialist whose presence is designed to stretch a defense horizontally. In Gino Auriemma's current offensive structure, Zabel's willingness to launch from deep and the staff's willingness to design and accept those looks signals a perimeter identity that extends beyond one game. The Xavier performance, however, also highlighted that she is only one piece of a broader arsenal. The three-point barrage against Xavier did not rely on a single hot hand. It was distributed across a rotation of shooters who all forced difficult choices. Ashlynn Shade added 4 three-pointers and 14 points. Azzi Fudd, recently recognized as AP National Player of the Week, contributed 4 more threes for 12 points. Fudd's season average of 3.8 made threes per game underscores how often UConn can expect high-volume shooting from multiple spots on the floor. When Zabel, Shade, and Fudd are all credible threats, a zone defense faces layered pressure. Close out hard on one shooter and the ball swings to another, collapse late on a drive, and the kick-out 3 remains available. Each rotation extends the defense further from the paint and deeper into disadvantage. The 26 assists against Xavier are a direct expression of that structure. Skip passes, extra passes, and interior out passes become the standard possession, not the exception. Over 6 straight games with 20-plus assists, UConn has demonstrated that perimeter depth is not just about shooting percentages. It is about forcing defenses to defend the full width of the floor, every possession. That model now collides with the South Florida defense, whose zone tendencies introduce a clear statistical tension. South Florida's zone defense historically allows significant three-point volume. On the 2024-25 season, USF opponents have shot 25.0% from 3. with an average of 5.6 made threes per game. On paper, that profile suggests a system willing to give some space on the perimeter in exchange for congestion in the paint. UConn's recent shooting form challenges that underlying calculus. If the Huskies simply maintain 40% efficiency from 3, below the 50% mark reached against Xavier, on 36 attempts, the numbers project to 14.4 made threes. That figure is nearly triple USF's average of 5.6 threes allowed per game. The mismatch is structural. A zone that is comfortable conceding certain perimeter looks now faces an opponent that has shown the ability to convert those looks at high efficiency from multiple positions. Every trip down the floor becomes a test of whether to adjust the scheme or trust the numbers that have held over a broader sample of games. This is where three-point data stops being abstract. It becomes a map of risk. The final layer of that risk centers on how South Florida chooses to handle the balance between the paint and the perimeter, particularly against Sarah Strong and Allie Ziebell. South Florida's strategic dilemma is direct. Pack the paint to limit Sarah Strong's interior touches and concede more airspace to shooters like Zabel, Shade, and Fudd. Or extend coverage to the arc and allow Strong to operate in space around the rim. Within UConn's current form, each option carries severe consequences. The Xavier game offers a case study. Strong scored 14 points while drawing consistent interior attention. She also recorded steals and initiated fast break opportunity as the zone tightened around her. When defenders crowd the post in a perimeter-oriented system, passing lanes can open sharply, leading to transition chances and interior breakdowns. Zabel's fifth three-pointer, at the 2:06 mark of the third quarter, came off an assist from Blanca Quinones. It was not an isolation shot. It was the product of a possession where help rotated inward, the ball moved, and the corner three was created by design. That sequence reflects the broader pattern. When help commits to the paint, the perimeter is exposed. The 104-39 margin against Xavier illustrates the end state of a zone that fails to solve that equation. It cannot simultaneously protect the rim and the three-point line against an offense operating with this level of spacing, ball movement, and perimeter confidence. Looking ahead to South Florida, the projection is not framed by narrative or emotion. It is framed by math. UConn's three-point performance against Xavier will be recorded as a statistical high point. 18 made threes at 50%, 26 assists, and a 65-point victory. But its lasting significance lies in how it clarifies the identity of this offense and the challenge it poses to zone defenses. Alli Ziebell's shift from bench option to volume perimeter specialist signals a rotation in which a freshman can reshape scouting reports in real time. Ashlynn Shade and Azzi Fudd add established spacing pressure. Sarah Strong anchors an interior that thrives precisely because opponents must stretch to the arc. For South Florida and other zone-heavy opponents, the legacy of this game is a strategic warning. A defense that historically tolerates some perimeter attempt must now confront an opponent that can turn those attempts into double and triple volume production. The choice between guarding the paint and guarding the three-point line is no longer theoretical. It is exposed on film, in numbers, and on the scoreboard. If UConn sustains even a portion of this perimeter efficiency, future games may be decided less by isolated bursts of effort and more by the structural reality that zone defenses are being asked to cover too much space. The three-point line, once a calculated risk within those schemes, has become the fulcrum on which outcomes turn. That is the enduring imprint of UConn's barrage against Xavier. An offensive template that forces every zone defense to answer the same question. Which part of the floor can it afford to leave unprotected?
Prime Field.